you want to know about Elon Musk potentially buying MSNBC, or do you want to know about AI Jesus?
You people are about to start World War III.
But I mean, like, he's not wrong. What do you think the total on my tab was before tax and tip?
I'm going to say he only rang in the first 2 drinks and it was like $20.
$6. Episode 43 of the Unscripted Company podcast. For those of you who don't know, it's been 2 weeks since Riley and I last met to record a podcast. So Riley, how are you doing, man? I was watching the Cowboys game right before we recorded this, and I know you kind of gave up on the Cowboys. I think most of the world gave up on the Cowboys at this point, but besides that, how are you doing?
I mean, work is work. I mean, it's picked up, but then people are still doing their thing. People aren't really. I've had some bad luck. Let me put it like that. Like, I mean, I'm hopefully about to have this listing sold, but it is a co-listing, so I'm making, less than what I was hoping to make all around. But it's still a closing nonetheless. But then I've had some people where these people came down from Washington. I showed them like 7 houses, and then they're like, "Yeah, we actually were talking about it. We're really fond of this area that's like 4 hours away from me." And so I'm like, yeah, that just doesn't work. So
wait, so not to spoil too much, but you say 4 hours away, so you're in you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Were they looking at somewhere outside of the Metroplex? 4 hours that's a good distance, even in Texas. Was it like east or west or south? I can tell you're Googling right now.
South. Yeah, it was like near. Here, I can actually I'll just pull up a map real quick and I'll show you exactly where it's at.
I'm very curious. Like, I guess maybe in their brain, and I've picked up on this with reading people's comments online sometimes, is they don't realize how far apart some of these Texas towns and communities are.
So I'm here.
Yeah.
And all of this, they were looking.
Yo, we're borderline East Texas now.
Hold on.
Small little town somewhere out here.
That's not it. I think it's there. Lake Conroe.
Oh, wait. They were looking at Conroe?
Yeah.
Dude, they need a Houston realtor for that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I told them. I was like, and so thankfully, like, our team lead has a contact down there, but I'm like, dude, like, I spent all this time looking with you only for you to be like, yeah, this place has golfing, hiking. And I'm like, okay, well, you got 2 lakes right here in a growing area, a massively growing area.
I feel like Flower Mound would be good for them if they're looking for golfing.
Great, like even Grapevine, like the whole Grapevine Lake area.
Yeah.
Like, you have all these parks, and I think you got a golf course that's around here somewhere. But also, too, if you're looking for that, freaking, where's it at? Trophy Club. Trophy Club has its own golf course.
I mean, it's literally called Trophy Club.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know.
That's like getting a realtor in New York and saying, oh, yeah, I want to buy a house in Vermont. Like, why?
That's what I'm saying.
Like, that's a whole different, I mean, it's the same time zone, but it might as well be a different time zone in terms of, like, real estate. Yeah. Residential real estate.
I told him, I was like, I would definitely like to keep this relationship going, and like work with you guys. Cause they even told me, they're like, yeah, this is our guy, for Texas and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And then you pull this freaking Houdini on me and, and you're just like, hey, we want to look here. And I'm like, I don't work there.
Yeah. You don't want to drive 4 hours for a showing.
Or for a potential, like, you may not even actually choose that. Like, for those of you who don't know, like, if you just look at this map, like, I just want you to take a good look at this. So, like, this is like the DFW area, just all this right here. So yep. I work, if you see my mouse cursor, so I work anywhere.
87?
82.
82. I need glasses.
So I work all the way from Gainesville. I could technically go out to Munster. Like, I've gone out to Bridgeport. Actually, I've gone out to Runaway Bay. I've gone to Weatherford. And then if you kind of just curl back around, I've actually gone as far down as freaking, where's it at?
Have you gone as far south as Hillsboro?
Not as Hillsboro. I've gone as far south as Alvarado.
Oh, really? That's pretty south.
So so I've gone Alvarado, and then you kind of go back up this way because I've gone to Seagoville, and then I've been to Royce City, Farmers, or actually Princeton is where I went to. So then you kind of cut back up into Princeton,
yeah,
and then back around. So like I have I've even been all the way up to freaking Collinsville.
Okay.
So I mean I've been around, and these people out here, and I get it. Like a lot of people, especially if you're not from the area, you don't know where you want to be. You don't know what you want, but there's some people that, they should, honestly, but it takes time coming down and finding stuff. But so there's that. Had some other people that, couldn't get pre-approved because of credit issues, things like that, and all that. So it's just, it is what it is.
I know one of the things I might bring up later on in the episode, and I put it in the show notes. I don't know if you peeked at it at all, but there's a lot of there's a guy I follow on X named Nick Gurley. He runs a company called ReVenture, and it does a bunch of like real estate data mapping and trends, and mapping that how mortgage demand across the country right now is down 50% from the same time in 2019. So it's very interesting. Just there's a multitude of factors at play here, but it's very interesting, like seeing people on social media talk about it, and then like you're seeing it in the real world as well. Maybe not so much of people not applying for the mortgage, but maybe not being able to rationally obtain said mortgage because of X, Y, and Z.
And I've had some people that, like, again, they just couldn't get pre-approved because of the credit. They couldn't, they've got the income. And then I've even had a client that I've actually been signed with, like we're actually in an agreement, and he'll contact the lender, and he'll say like, but he won't get back with me. And I've called this man and texted him so many times, and I'm like, you do realize like you're kind of, defaulting on the agreement right now, because the agreement clearly states that you'll be readily available if I'm reaching out to you, things like that. So don't know what's going on. I mean, if he ghosts me, he ghosts me, but it's like, don't be like that, man. Like, because if you try to come back, like, I'm probably just I'm not gonna work with you. Like, I'm not losing sleep over that if you're gonna do that to me. And so yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I probably won't hit the goal that I wanted to hit by the end of the year, but I've got stuff in the pipeline ready for next year, hopefully, if everything goes well. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Hopefully the market heats up. Once you have a new president take office, people feel a little more confident. They know, what's happening in terms of, the fiscal policy of the country. They feel more confident investing or taking out, loans for certain things like this. So hey, it could heat up. We'll see what happens. But, there's a new year ahead of us. It's crazy to think that it's already late November. I'm like looking at the calendar on my computer right now, and I'm like, oh, it is like late November. Thanksgiving is the week of this episode posting. So it's almost 2025. We only got a couple of weeks left. That's it.
Yep. How was your week? I know you had your trip and everything. So
yeah. So for those of you who didn't tune in last week, first of all, great episode last week. We talked about what if Texas were to legalize gambling and casinos and gaming, betting in the state of Texas and all that. But the reason we talked about that was last weekend, I was on my honeymoon with my lovely wife, who went to Las Vegas. And man, let me tell you, that city is something else. I have so many stories I want to tell, but there was one story in particular, because I know you texted me shortly after I got back, and you're like, hey man, how's it going? How's the trip? Checking in. And God, I wanted to tell you so much, but at the same time, I was like, I got to wait for the podcast, because I have a story that I think, there were a lot of highlight moments on this trip, but one in particular I thought you would get a kick out of. And I put it in the show notes, but I'm going to share it on my screen. There's this bar in Las Vegas named Champagne's Café. Now, it's not a bar that's like on the strip or anything. It's more of like a locals bar. It's just pretty far off the strip in comparison. The reason Abby and I went to this bar was we had seen it on Bar Rescue. And for those of you who don't know, Bar Rescue, it's a show hosted by John Taffer. It's similar to, was it Kitchen Nightmares, where, you have this bar that is run down, failing financially, and you have this, bar guru, John Taffer. He comes in, He screams at a lot of people. He wins the hearts and minds over of the staff, hopefully. And, he renovates the bar, and then they go on their merry way. And depending on how ownership handles it, they're either a success or a miserable failure, and everyone goes into bankruptcy and they end up killing themselves. So this one, this one was kind of interesting because we had seen the episode for this, and the reason the bar seemed so interesting, and I'll kind of do a little screen share here to show you what it looks like inside. This bar used to be, maybe still is, but it definitely used to be like a mob hangout in like the old Las Vegas back in the 50s and 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell by the wallpaper. That's the original wallpaper from like when the building first opened. It was like they renovated the wallpaper and all that, but this was also a hangout for the Rat Pack. So like Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., those guys back in the day too. So there's a lot of history in this building. And so Abby and I had seen this bar on Bar Rescue, and, we're both history nerds, and we're like, you know what? If we're going to do something that's off like the touristy side of Vegas, like we had to go to this bar to check it out. So, man, this story is a roller coaster. Okay, let me make sure I get every facet of the story. So we'd already had a full day at this point. And so around like 5:30, that's when we opt to go to this bar. I think we got there around 5:30, which for context, in Vegas time, that's still very early. The city of Vegas really doesn't wake up till like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. So for us, we're acting like the old people, but still 5:30, right? You think if you go to a bar, there's probably going to be some people showing up 5:30, some happy hour, stuff like that, right? We'll get here at 5:30. There's only two people in the bar. There's the bartender, and there's a guy that's playing the video poker on the bar. So since we're in Vegas, like, they have like on the bar top, they have like the video poker sitting there. So he's sitting there, gambling, who knows how much, life savings away. And so we walk in and we're like, oh snap. We are basically the only two people, especially the only two people under the age of like 40 in this place right now. And so we're like, all right, but we're determined to go because like, we'd seen all about this bar and whatnot. And we go and sit in one of these booths, like right over here, basically. We're kind of deep into the room over here. And we sit down, and I go up to the bar to order a drink. And we kind of look at the menu. And when I start talking to the bartender to order our drink, I start to pick up on something. I'm like, hold on a minute. I think this bartender's already pretty drunk. Like, he's coherent still at this point, but I'm like, he's slurring his words. I'm picking up on it here. And he's also talking with the guy playing the video poker, actually kind of where this person, I think, in the screenshot sitting, like literally in the seat right here. And throughout the conversation, through the ordering of the initial first round of drinks, he finds out that like I'm there on my honeymoon with my wife. He gives me a high five. Doesn't acknowledge my wife at all. Like, she might as well just be a ghost in the room. It's kind of interesting. And so I ordered, they have this drink on the menu. It was a mango habanero lemonade. I think he called it, they had like a fancier name than that, but I ordered that. And I go sit down while he's making it. And he speaks up and he goes, I never taste these drinks, so I don't know if they're good or bad. And I'm like, what? Because, most times, like, I know you and I bartended at one point, but for those of you who don't know, like, most of the time, if you want to see if a drink is good or not, you can do a little taste test just to see, to make sure, like, is this balanced the way it should be?
We don't put our mouths on the glass, just to clarify. We use a straw.
Exactly. Yeah, you stick the straw, you put your finger over it, you use gravity and oxygen.
I'm just full on, man. Like, I'm drinking half that drink before I send it out to the table, man. That's what's happening.
Yes.
Yeah, half sweet and sour.
And so, like, he's making me second guess this drink because he's like saying, like, yo, it's so hot, I can't stand it, so I don't taste it. And I'm like, oh man, how hot is this drink going to be? And, I like hot stuff normally. Like, I've had habaneros before, so like I wasn't shocked at first, but I was like, man, how hot is this drink? So I go up there and grab the drink, and I taste it. It tasted delicious. He actually made it surprisingly very well, considering he had never tasted it nor cared to test it. Delicious. Wasn't that hot at all. It was like a nice, flavorful little tingle. Nothing crazy. So I have that one. And then I go up there to order like a second round at some point. And we end up getting into a conversation with the guy playing video poker. And he's asking us like, oh, like, where are you from? And we're like, oh, we're from Austin. And he goes, oh, I'm from Fredericksburg. And for those of you who are not from Texas, like Fredericksburg is a small kind of touristy town just west of Austin, out in what we call the hill country. And we're like, oh, so in comparison, he's like hour and a half away from us, which is very close in terms of like two people in Texas randomly running into other people from Texas, like out in Las Vegas at this small bar that nobody else is at the moment. He's like, yeah, I'm from Fredericksburg, but I live out here now. And we end up finding out that his nephew is the little boy from 2.5 Men. And so he's telling us about all this. And we're like, at first, just like kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like we think this crazy guy at the bar is like just spending some, tale with us right now. But he starts showing us family photos on his phone. And we're like, oh, this guy's not lying. Like here's photos of him with his sister and like the kid and all that. And the kid grown up, like different years too, of like since he was a little boy all the way grown up. And we find out this little boy from 2.5 Men, of course, now he's like our age, Riley. He lives out in a town called Dripping Springs, which is even closer to Austin. It's just like 20 minutes outside of Austin, basically. And we're like, whoa. And apparently he owns this big ranch out there. And then he has like all this like self-sustaining features about it, like solar, power banks. He has wildlife living out there, like agriculture. The dude's
set up for like the end of the world right now. See,
the dude's floated basically. Like he made a ton of money off that show and his other stuff he did before that. And so that was interesting. We're talking to this guy for a while. We're like, okay, so we met a guy from Fredericksburg living out there now. His nephew is the boy from 2.5 Men. Mm-hmm. The bartender is continuously getting more drunk throughout the night. Right. And what's funny too is like in this bar, there's like TVs like posted up. Right. And so it's 5:30. The TVs are on a mix of like TNT and TBS. So like Lord of the Rings is on the TV. And then the first Christian Bale Batman movie is on there. So we're like also watching like Lord of the Rings and Batman throughout all this. The guy playing video poker ends up taking his winnings and leaving. So it's just Abby and I and the bartender. And when I go up to get another round of drinks, I'm like picking his brain about, what does he like to make? Because basically what I was trying to get to was like, hey, make me something you like. Make me something that's like off the menu or something I maybe haven't had before. And he's like,
last words.
I do, right? I started to get worried when I started, because at first I was hoping for it to be just like a very simple conversation. Just like, hey, here's the question. You give me the answer. Okay, make it. He's like, starts talking like about all this random stuff. But long story short, he ends up making me a drink that he didn't call a margarita, but it tasted just like a margarita. He didn't say it was a margarita, but it was a poor man's margarita. But I asked for one. He made me one. He made Abby one. And then he made himself one. And so we all had one of those. And then I went up. Oh, and throughout this time, Abby ends up getting a phone call from her mom. So she steps away to go talk on the phone with her mom. And so it's just me and the bartender talking for a little bit. And there was an advertisement on TV for the new Gladiator movie, Gladiator 2, that's coming out. And for those of you who don't know, it has like Denzel Washington in it. And, it looks like a fun movie. Well, the bartender starts going on this long rant about the historical accuracies of having Denzel Washington in the movie. The bartender, for context, he's like, I don't know, maybe early 40s, late 30s, tall, semi-burly white guy. And so, I'm just trying to be chill throughout all this smile and wave kind of concept. And we're talking about this. And somehow the conversation gets steered towards his childhood upbringing in Minneapolis, in this neighborhood that was predominantly Polish, and how at some point they had found that like a former Nazi commander had been living in this neighborhood, and like all of the Polish people went out to go attack this like former Nazi commander. We Googled it. It was a real news story that happened in like 2019, 2020. So that was a real thing. And then he was telling me all these like white on white racism and swear words that his dad taught him growing up. And it was a wild conversation, to say the least. So it was me and him like one-on-one. He made me another drink. He also made himself another drink. Throughout this conversation, he's starting to become like inaudible, like to the point where like he's starting to get so drunk where I don't know half the words he's saying. I'm just like kind of like casually bobbing my head, just like, because I don't know what else to do. I can't like ignore him because there's literally nobody else in the building. But also Abby's on the phone with her mom, and I'm just like, okay, this is fun. Like I didn't feel scared or in danger at any point. I'm just like, this is a weird situation. And then I go sit back down. Abby comes back. At some point, I go to the restroom. This is what's interesting. So I didn't learn this till after the fact, but Abby had went to the restroom, and she had told me that like she had a photo of it. It basically like a bathroom mirror. Picture this, but it was like had a giant crack going through it. Like someone had like punched the mirror basically.
Mhm.
So it was like that in the women's restroom. Dude, in the men's restroom, they just had a urinal and like nothing else. I didn't see like a bathroom sink. There was not a stall. It was just like the urinal. So if you had to do anything other than pee, you were out of luck, dude. Like, and it didn't even have like a button or like a sensor for like water to flow through it. It was just like you're peeing into a urinal and it just like hopefully goes out the drain. Dude, it was wild though. Like the actual inside, like the actual bar area was relatively clean. Like the seats were like well kept up. There was no holes, anything like that. Like I didn't feel dirty sitting there, but the bathroom was atrocious.
I guess Bar Rescue didn't rescue the bathrooms.
Dude. Oh man. When we first got there, before he actually found out we were there on our honeymoon, this was like when the video poker guy was still there. He asked us like, oh, like what brings you into like this bar? And I verbatim, I was like, I'd be lying if I didn't say it was because we saw it on Bar Rescue. And he was not happy with that answer. He was like, he went on this long rant about how he hated John Taffer and like how like Bar Rescue did more harm than good. And I'm just like, all right, whatever. I backed myself out of that conversation, but he was not a fan of Bar Rescue to say the least. Okay, so fast forward. Abby and I are sitting at the booth. Video poker guy's gone. We're, I think, like 3 rounds of drinks in at this point. This other couple comes in. Older couple. They look like probably like our parents' age in a sense. Like you could tell they're like suburban folk. They come in. They sit down at the booth next to us, like over in this like far section, and we start talking to them. They seem like super nice folks, and we find out that this is also their first time here. But they had seen the Bar Rescue episode and they had always wanted to come in and see it. Now, this Bar Rescue episode aired like a decade ago. This is not like a recent episode. This is like, I don't know, 2014 maybe. And so we start talking to them. It's their first time here. They like live in the Vegas area, but they're like in a suburb of Vegas. So totally random that we're both there on the same night. The husband goes up to order the wife a drink and get him a drink. Dude, their beer was so warm because I watched him pour him a beer and it's like half of it was foam. He had to like dump the whole thing out and like it took him a second to do that. And then like we end up talking to them just about like local Vegas stuff, getting their perspective on things, and they were asking us about Texas, and Vegas has the same problem with like Californians moving in and like running up the prices on things. I'm trying to think and then while that's happening, I think the bartender's a little salty that like I'm not talking to him anymore and that we're talking to this couple sitting next to us that we're not scared of at the moment, where he makes himself another drink. He like pours himself a beer and he goes and sits at the booth on the other side of us. So it's like him in a booth, Abby and I in a booth, and then this other couple in a booth, and nobody else in the bar, no one behind the bar technically. Well, then the owner walks in. The only reason I know it's the owner is because I've seen the Bar Rescue episode and I know what he looks like. So he comes in and he like walks to the back. There's like a back office thing back here. He's like doing like paperwork or, you know, whatever an owner's doing back there. And then he pops his head out. And then I think he has the epiphany of like, why is my bartender not behind the bar? And why is he literally drinking in a booth watching television? And he walks up and he's like, dude, what are you doing? Like he's not like yelling at him, but he's like, why are you being a dumbass? Like, what are you doing? Like, go, like, I hired you to be a bartender. Go be a bartender. And they kind of have like a back and forth. And the guy's like, fine. He kind of huffs and puffs, goes back behind the bar, still with a beer in his hand, like the whole time. The guy never tells him to put up the beer, technically. And so, like,
he's like, go back to work, but you can still drink. It's fine.
Yes. And I promise I'm getting to the end of the story here, but it's like, I want to make sure I capture like every aspect here. The dude is like belligerently drunk at this point. Like, he can't walk straight. He can't coherently make a sentence. And so Abby and I had been here maybe like hour and a half, getting up on 2 hours here. We could tell the couple next to us, they were already had their second round, and Abby and I talked about this after the fact, but we also didn't want to just like leave the other couple there by themselves with this guy, because it was starting to feel a little sketch just for the sake that like nobody else is here. But we're like, okay, we know the other couple's kind of getting ready to leave here. Like, this is a good moment for us just to like, we've been here, we had our adventure, let's dip. So I walk up there and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to cash out. Cool. We had minimum 6 drinks. We might have had 7, I forget, but minimum 6 for sure across the two of us. And I go up there and in my head, I'm like, okay, this tab's going to be, I don't know. Like, when I looked at the menu to order the first drink, most of the drinks were like $9.99. It was like relatively affordable since it wasn't on the strip. I can tell you the price of cocktails on the Las Vegas Strip for 2 people and 2 cocktails, like you're spending $100. Like,
Oh yeah,
dude, it's bananas. Spent so much money I didn't need to spend, but so I knew like their average cocktail here was going to be a little less than $10. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna spend $50-$60. It's gonna be fine. I walk up there and he's like doing his little thing on his terminal, and he hands me. Have you been to like a restaurant or bar where they give you like a little portable? It's not like an iPhone thing, but it's like you put the card in on like a little thing. He had one of those. So he passes it over to me. I know it's my tab because I see him like confirm the tab. It has my name on there and everything, and he hands me the thing to like add the tip. And I look at the total. What do you think the total on my tab was before tax and tip?
I'm gonna say he only rang in the first 2 drinks, and it was like $20.
$6. I don't know where he got this number from because none of the drinks you ordered were $6. The cheapest drink we got was like $9.75 or something. I don't know where the $6 came from.
He probably never rang in anything, and he's like, you know what? That looks about right.
Dude, there was moments where like, for those of you listening, like you can't see what I'm doing, but like I'm putting my hands over my eyes. Like he was kind of doing those things where it's like he was so drunk. He didn't know what he was doing half the time. Like, oh dude, when he was making like our second and third rounds of drinks, Abby had the same drink every single time. I mixed it up a couple times, but she had the exact same. She had a French 45, like or French 75. French 75. It's the champagne and gin.
Yeah.
She had the same drink every time, and like he would start to make the drink. And then he would say something, and he'd look back at me, and he'd go, "What was I making?" He was like, "What did you order?" There's nobody else in the building. Like, how did you forget the one drink you're making?
Dude,
and it's like the third time you're making it too. But yeah, dude, I wish I could have seen an itemized receipt to see like what the heck did he even charge me for. And the funny thing was when I checked like my bank statement the next day, because when I was there, I was just like double checking to make sure I didn't get like overcharged or anything crazy, knowing that we were spending some wild money. I checked it, and when I saw for like the Champagne's Café line, I noticed there was a little bit of an upcharge on there, and I was like, "Why did I get charged more?" And I remembered, some places if you use like a credit card, usually there's sometimes like a minimum, like they like at a bar they'll say like, "Oh, for you to have a card, you have to spend at least like $10 or $15." Yeah. This place had one of those, so I realized since he only charged me $6, technically that was below their minimum, and they had to throw an extra like $3 on there to like make it worthwhile to charge a credit card on there. So I'm just like, oh my gosh. So then after I cash out, I tipped him $20. I was like, okay, he charged me $6. I'm gonna tip him $20. We walk out of there, order an Uber to go back. And dude, the Uber driver on the way back is like, how do I describe this kid? He was driving a Mercedes C-Class, which is like a really nice Mercedes car.
Yeah.
Like a black guy about our age, had his fingernails done with like a bedazzlement on them, was very sassy and it was a fun drive. We were telling him about our experience, and he was like, oh man, maybe after I get off, I'm gonna get some friends and go back there. But also, Champagne's Café, open 24/7.
Dang. Hopefully that's not the only bartender they got working there, because if it is, man is just he's not surviving.
Dude, I was sitting there thinking throughout this whole time, before I even saw the bill, I was just like, how are they open? How are they affording the electricity bill right now? And then once I got the bill, I was like, how is this man employed right now? So anyways, I'll tell future stories about other things that happened, but I just wanted to tell that story in its entirety because I feel like you would appreciate it as a former bartender. Champagne's Café. If you ever find yourself in Las Vegas, that is the place to go.
I feel like I now have to go there and hopefully meet the same bartender that you met and be like, oh, you met my friend here. He told me all about you.
Dude, I don't even know if he would remember the night. And I say
probably
night,
wouldn't.
This was 5:30 in the afternoon.
Dude, and the thing, and like, I mean, we used to be bartenders, and I'll be honest, like, I'd be remiss to say in my old life, like, there were a couple of nights that, like, I probably should not have been back behind that bar. But that's just how bartending life is. I mean, like, you have people that'll buy you shots and buy you stuff, and in corporate world, you're not supposed to drink, but what are you gonna do?
It happens.
You're gonna turn it down. So, So yeah, there were those nights, but no, that sounds like you had a very fun and eventful time. Glad y'all enjoyed it. Glad y'all are back home safe and didn't get murdered somewhere.
Thankfully, yeah.
Yeah, always scares me. That's why sometimes I'm afraid to travel out of Texas, because I'm like, I know the gun law's here, and I'm always packing. Can't always guarantee the same thing anywhere else, so I have to research the gun laws before I go anywhere. Make sure I'm good.
Man, so that might have been our longest water cooler segment of all time thus far, clocking in about 30 minutes here. So I definitely want to pass over to you for what is the first topic you want to touch on tonight? I saw you had a couple there, but I know it's been a lot of stuff in the news lately, so I'm going to hand it off to you.
I mean, we'll still make time to try to talk about as much as we can, but the first one, I mean, honestly, it's very simplistic, but I thought it was pretty cool, though, just because I'm very much so, like, galaxy nerd, like, you know, like I like stars and planets and things like that. But the first thing I have was the astronomers revealed the first detailed image of a dying star in another galaxy.
I know I've given some nonsense about this in the past in some episodes, because I always pull back with, how do we know? Because we can't see it. Apparently now we can.
Now, I'm taking it with a grain of salt, because here's the thing. Okay, when it comes to like technology, our technology is more advanced, and obviously it's more advanced than what it ever has been. But yet, it took forever just to get a picture of a freaking black hole. And now it wasn't even like from what I remember, it wasn't even like a real photo. It was like an AI interpretation of what was being scanned out there, if I remember correctly. I'll have to Google just to see, but
yeah,
it kind of looks similar to this, honestly. Like, except you swap the yellow with the black and swap the black with the yellow. Kind of similar.
Yeah.
Recent capture. This was back in. Oh, this is actually just yesterday that this article was posted. A recent capture by the most powerful European Southern Observatory's Very Large Telescope and Interferometer has enabled researchers to view the scene of a lifetime, the first ever close-up image of a dying star outside of our galaxy. The celestial spectacle detailed the dramatic death throes of a giant star named WOHG 64 that is situated in a galaxy beyond our Milky Way. I'm not going to try to pronounce that name, but
there's a lot of words in this article. It's like, you never would have said this before out loud.
No. The astrophysicists at Universidad Andrés Bello in Chile share the exciting news. It's about 160,000 light years away from us. Tell the behemoth star, it was around 2,000 times bigger than our own sun, but it's located in a large Magellanic cloud, a small galaxy that orbits our Milky Way with its humongous size. I mean, to me, I'm actually kind of surprised, because they've been intrigued by this, but they've used they first used observations from ESO's VLTI in 2005. So they've been using this telescope, or this technology, for going on 20 years now. But
so I guess that's how they knew it was happening, because they've been observing it for a while.
Yeah,
and then as they see a change,
happen. Yeah, because things like this don't just happen. Like, it takes time for a star to officially die, and so. So that's been experiencing significant change in the last 10 years, providing us with a rare opportunity to witness a star's life in real time. So, like, I mean, let's be real here. If our star, which I don't know if you remember this, but back in like grade school, they said like on average we have about 5 million years left until our star dies out, unless something happens to it or whatever.
Here for a good time, not a long time.
100%, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Could you imagine if that happened? I mean, it wouldn't happen. Well, I don't know. Would it happen in our lifetime? I don't know. But could you imagine if that would?
We'd be screwed. 100%. We would die immediately, because it would turn into a black hole.
Like in our context, wouldn't it kind of happen slowly? Like over like days and weeks and months and years?
Theoretically, it's already happening, because as the star gets, it's the same as like human life. As you get older, the star's already dying. But like, I don't know what.
Like, it's going to happen regardless, because we're already on that trajectory. It's the life cycle of it.
I just don't know what what phases happen. I don't remember all those phases of like you could say like all the solar flares we've been having, you know, all the massive solar flares, like that could be, you know, a stepping stone to what's supposed to happen. But you would know because I'm pretty sure that the star would not grow, but like get hotter and in the intensity, so to speak. And then it would, you know, as it gets hotter and hotter, then it would just implode on itself. And if the implosion doesn't kill us, because it's very likely that it could, if that doesn't kill us, then the massive black hole that would form from that star, from our sun, would kill us. Because if that one doesn't kill us, then we have another black hole on the opposite side of us that would kill us. So one of them's going to get us at some point. And we may or may not be here. So the significance of capturing a dying star is always ready to surprise and inspire us today. Today, it is the unique image of a dying star beyond our galaxy. In the ever-evolving field of astronomy, this is just one of the countless wonders that awaits us. With each star we scrutinize, each galaxy we explore, we inch closer to understanding the cosmos and our place in it. So yeah, I just thought that was very interesting. I mean, we don't ever really get to see stuff like this. Like, you know, me and Dana, like, we enjoy, you know, anytime there's like a major sky event or something like that, we try to go capture it if we can, but sometimes they happen at like 2 a.m. and your boy's asleep because I got more important things to do. But
do you ever think about it that you really just enjoy death and destruction? So if you think about it, you know, watching a star go supernova, that's a lot of death and destruction. If you see comets and asteroids go by, it's a lot of impending death and destruction.
Well, it depends too, because what about the death and destruction? Like, are there, let's just say for that dying star, for instance, are there other planets out there that have life on them that probably died from that?
That's the $1 trillion question right there, good sir.
So yeah, I mean, that was just kind of, I thought that was very interesting. Definitely like events like that. Those things are kind of cool. Definitely hoping that does not happen in our lifetime in our own solar system. That'd be great.
Yeah,
so
that would be great if it didn't happen.
Yeah. So yeah.
Nice. Okay, I'm going to let you choose your own adventure on this one because I'm going to for sure talk about either one of these. Do you want to know about Elon Musk potentially buying MSNBC, or do you want to know about AI Jesus?
Honestly, if we talk on both of them, I'm cool with whichever one you decide to choose first.
All right, cool. Let me hit you with some knowledge here real quick. Have you seen the news about Elon Musk joking about wanting to purchase MSNBC?
Yeah.
So MSNBC is going to be put up for sale. For those of you who don't know, Comcast is having to basically offload a bunch of their cable properties just because it's not, cable's not the business that it was a decade, nonetheless, like 50 years ago. Just the advertising dollars isn't what it used to be. So we do know Comcast is for sure going to put MSNBC up for sale. CNN's got layoffs coming. If you're in cable news, it's not a good business to be in right now. So we know that news is circulating. Well, earlier this week, Donald Trump Jr. went on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, and said, "Hey, Elon Musk," he tagged him specifically because, "Hey, Elon, I have the funniest idea ever." And he quoted or like tied in the other post talking about MSNBC being up for sale. And so Elon chimes in, as so he does, and says, "How much does it cost?" ? Which is, if anyone remembers, before he actually bought Twitter, that's kind of how it started too, was he was like, he just posted one day. He was like, what if I just buy Twitter? And then
you can see it to the right side over there.
Yeah, the joke became reality. Yeah, he goes, "I love Twitter." Someone goes, "You should buy it then." "How much is it?" And now we all know how that story ended. So he ended up posting that. And then Elon ended up commenting on top of that post saying, "The most entertaining outcome, especially if ironic, is most likely." But below that, Joe Rogan then chimes in and he goes, "If you buy MSNBC, I would like Rachel Maddow's job. I will wear the same outfit and glasses and I will tell the same lies." And Elon chimes in and says, "Deal."
Dude, I'm just saying, like, I would love to be like, I don't aspire to be like any one person, like I want to be the person that I am and who I've been called to be, all that kind of stuff. But dude, can you imagine what it would be like to just be involved in threads like that? Like, to have those conversations with just, because like they're just casually like, "Yo, if you do this, I want to be a part of this. I want this." Like, and that to me, that blows my mind. But it's like, could you imagine the future of media if Elon Musk buys MSNBC?
It'll be
Like,
interesting.
if he buys MSNBC, that would probably be the only news station, like minus the independent ones, because like I don't really like. Very rarely do I watch anything from Fox News or CNN or any of those. But if he
You
was
and
to buy
everyone else in this generation, dude,
dude,
nobody. It's hard to like try to explain this to people who aren't like online the majority of the day, to where
yeah,
they assume like CNN and Fox, just the two heavy hitters as an example, they assume that's still like the most sought after news source. When it's like, if you just take one episode of like a Joe Rogan podcast, or one episode of a Tucker Carlson interview,
or Unscripted Company,
well, we're getting there. We'll get, hey, future us, we're there, but like current us, working there.
I'm just
No, you're spot on though. Like if you take the majority of these partisan, even non-partisan, you just take all this, like these independent outlets, they're getting 10, 20, 30, 50 times the number of eyeballs than these traditional news organizations get today. And it's hard to explain to people, because they even still use the term mainstream media. It's not the mainstream anymore. And I think we saw that this election. I know we talked about it 2 episodes ago, and I'll be quick on it, but we knew who was going to win by what we saw on social media. It wasn't because of what we saw on cable news. Social media was the true litmus test of who was going to win that election. Yeah. And I think it's going to be more so true for most news going forward, is what you see on platforms like X. That's where the town square is now. It's not on cable news anymore.
I agree with that, and I'll be honest, I think that currently what we see like on independent news stations, and like where a lot of people that do podcast, I feel like podcasting is the future news.
Yeah.
I truly do. I mean, yeah, you have your very niche podcasts, and just to use us an example, we're kind of still figuring things out. We're still doing stuff, but that's part of the journey, though. No podcast really ever, unless you just have the money to have all your systems in place immediately and your vision is laid out right there. If you're starting from nothing and you're building your way up, you have to work into finding kind of what works for you and what doesn't. But when I see, Joe Rogan podcast, and there's some podcasts that don't even really talk about stuff like, news or whatever the case may be, but they just talk about, current things. You have, like you said, the Tucker Carlson show, you have Charlie Kirk, Steven Crowder, Joe Rogan, all these people that have these podcasts, and some of them just talk about the most random things and the funniest stuff. But then some people are like, hey, I'm not going to just tell you one side of what's happening in our world, but I want you to see from what I'm reading and what I'm taking in. And if you want to go do the research yourself, you can, but this is just your one-stop shop to like, hey, I'm going to be talking about this kind of stuff throughout the course of this show or what it is that I'm doing here. So I truly think podcasting is the future of, news anchorage, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just because we take the time to like, do some, and it's like, and it's not even as far as like, okay, we're going to do a deep dive and find everything we can, but it's like, it's literally just as simple as just like, don't just believe everything that these 2 major news stations say. Go look at the other 5 independent news stations that are going to tell you from both sides, or tell you from, their perspective. And it's like, and do your own research. I've always said that, do your own research, but we'll get off that soapbox for now. But that I truly think that's the case with podcasting and stuff like that. That's how it's shaping up to be, I think.
Yeah. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. My gut tells me they're just making a troll of it right now, just with Elon saying, oh yeah, I'm going to buy it. Question is, it depends how, like, what's the cost that Comcast is willing to say, like, yeah, this is what we'll accept for you to purchase MSNBC. Because also a lot of people don't realize MSNBC is at the kind of the lower tier in terms of like actual eyeballs viewership. It's much more partisan on the left. So it's kind of, that's the irony of Elon Musk going to purchase it, is like MSNBC is probably one of the most far left of the legacy media, like cable news channels. But it'll be interesting because some media properties get sold way undervalued just because they just want to get rid of them.
So when you have to, it's treated like real estate.
Yeah.
When you have to sell it, you'll take whatever you can get. And I don't foresee. And here's the thing: Twitter used to be the same way before Elon Musk bought it. It was
Yeah.
like it started losing its users, and people didn't care because they started same as Facebook, which they've eased up on Facebook as far as like blocking what you can and can't post and stuff
Yeah.
like that. They've eased up on a lot of social media platforms for that. But I think if Elon was to buy MSNBC, it wouldn't be like a riotous thing, but like, dude, I'm not even kidding. If Joe Rogan was on that, like, I would watch that every single week. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, that would be one of I would add that to my list just to see how they would present it to the public.
Yeah.
Like,
I'd be curious to see, like, do they even keep it on cable television? I could see them making it like an online only, like they almost purchase it just for the assets of the production value of like the studios and the equipment. Not so much the people, but like I could almost see them doing something similar to like all these independent journalists, and I think maybe
YouTube and all that.
I guess like maybe like Blaze Media would be a good comparison.
Okay.
Or I mean, like you could say the Tucker Carlson Network. He's like a one-man shop though, but I could see them making like incorporating it as part of X potentially, where there's like a 24-hour live stream of news per se, but it's exclusive to the app.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
The end of the year is still a ways away, and deals like this tend to take a while too. So who knows? 2025 is coming up.
That's very true. What else?
So
you got?
the next three things, they all kind of technically go into all the same thing, and honestly, it kind of goes into one of the things that you have on your topics. So for those of y'all who have been keeping up with it, again, we don't like to talk about a whole bunch of political stuff, but some things are heating up over there in Russia right now. I mean, things kind of died down a little bit after Trump was officially elected president, and he kind of made the contact with Putin, and they were shaking hands and all that kind of stuff and everything. But apparently Russia has been luring people into they've been Yemeni mercenaries to fight in Ukraine. So Russia is luring people just so that they have to fight over there. And so I don't really know, like, as far as like how much of this is actually on here, but just to kind of preface, like I said, all three of these are kind of similar in the regards, but Yemeni recruits who traveled to Russia told the FT they were promised high salaried employment and even Russian citizenship when they arrived. With the help of Houthi-linked company, they were then forcibly inducted into the Russian army and then sent to the front lines in Ukraine.
That's so wild.
So they're essentially luring people there only to put them into the war, essentially. So again, like I don't want to spend too much time on this. There's definitely a couple other things.
Did you see where Biden authorized Ukraine to use like U.S. supplied missiles to strike inside of Russia?
I don't know if that's what that might be one of the ones that you have.
That's probably the article you just pulled up. That's probably in retaliation to that.
Yeah. And then so Putin warns West, you're pushing us towards a world war. Here's the thing. If we were to have a war, I don't think it would be. People would be like, "Oh, remember when Trump didn't cause any wars, and now he's the new president, and now we're going into World War III." Keep in mind, you have to look at the past 4 years. This has all been building for the last 2 years. Honestly, I wouldn't say all 4, but this has really been building up for the last 2 years significantly.
What's wild is some of this has escalated within the last week and a half.
Yeah,
it's wild seeing what the Biden administration's doing with less than 6 weeks left in his administration. The only thing that gives me some kind of hope and solace is we do know, it's on the record, Trump has already spoken to Putin after formally winning the election. So we do know there's some communication there, but also
he's trying to.
Trump is technically not the president yet. So it's he can't make decisions yet.
Yeah, but he's trying to. He's already doing. He's already trying, even though he technically can't make decisions yet, but he's already trying to reestablish that relationship that he lost for those 4 years, which he didn't really lose it, but it's just he couldn't make any decisions. But he's not only Putin is not only prolonging the war, he's spitting in the face of those in the world who genuinely want peace to be restored. So it's like I don't understand why people. Here's my thing: if we're gonna have World War III, quit talking about it. Push the button. Push the button. Go for it. I'm just saying, like, if you want to have a war that bad, push the button. Nobody wants to be the first person to push the button. So, like, quit talking. Like, either if you're gonna talk about it, be about it. That's all I'm saying. I don't like how they keep threatening to do all this stuff and how like, oh, we're on our way to World War III. Okay, I still don't see a finger pushing a button. And so that's just kind of my thing. And then even the last one, Joe Rogan rants against Biden and Zelensky for trying to start World War III. So he talks about them. I'm not going to play the video just because I don't want anything to come up. But
you probably could if you wanted to.
Yeah,
it's like a clip.
See. Yeah,
I have a theory, and I'm not alone in this theory. I probably borrowed this from someone else smarter than I, but I think they're ramping up the situation over there to hand off a mess to Trump for him to try to clean it up.
Oh, 100%, dude.
Yeah.
100%. And I've already been kind of like thinking about that because I'm like, dude, they're trying to screw him over so bad with everything and like they even like, I can't remember what it was that I saw, but I saw an article that talked about like the Democrats are really trying to like ramp up everything in a way to put his cabinet in a bind to make everything harder for them when they transition.
Yeah.
So let me play this right here.
How I don't feel safer is right now they're launching missiles into. How are you allowed to do that when you're on the way out? Like the people don't want you to be there anymore. There should be like some sort of a pause for like significant actions that could potentially start World War III. Maybe that would be a good thing that we would like to avoid from a dying former president. It's the whole thing is nuts.
I mean, look, I don't know about politics.
Zelensky says Putin is terrified. You, man. You people. You people are about to start World War III.
But I mean, like, he's not wrong.
No, and he's not. And the thing is, though, is like a lot of people don't like Joe Rogan, but I respect him in that fact that he's willing to speak his mind and not care about what anyone thinks. Like I respect him for that. There's sometimes where like I do want to speak my mind, but I'm like, okay, I got to be careful with what I say and what I do. But he's not wrong. Like, y'all are having all these issues, and I get it. This is like almost the exact same thing with freaking North Korea. Was it North Korea and Taiwan, or is it China and Taiwan? I can't remember.
China and Taiwan.
Yeah, China and Taiwan. So it's like the U.S. is trying to just de-escalate everything now that even though the Biden administration is still in, but now Trump is taking over in January, he's already trying to informally de-escalate everything before he even gets into office. That's how bad this is getting right now. And I don't think people really understand, and it's not really for us to worry about like when you think about it, but you can't help but to think about it and to be like, okay, if this happens, what's going to happen?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. It's one of those where it's like realistically, we have our own day-to-day monotony to worry about, and thankfully we're blessed to where some of the stuff, the majority of the stuff that happens overseas, we don't really have to be worried about it in a sense. We're kind of blessed in that way, but it does impact us in terms of like overall sentiment of, first of all, being an American, traveling overseas, but the price of goods, whatever happens in China and Taiwan for sure will affect us in terms of prices for, chips and technology and things that are imported from overseas. But man, it really just seems like they're trying to ramp up as much escalation as possible right before Inauguration Day, and then they just hand him a big old poo-poo platter, and they're like, "Figure it out, dude."
Dude, the thing is I'm interested to see what's going to happen with all the previous administration. Like, there's going to be some stuff that's going to happen. They're going to be brought up on some things. I feel like some stuff's in the works, and they're already trying to really like, yo, like you screwed this country over. Like you've been doing this for years. Like you're not going to get away with it anymore. Like what they did to Trump during his whole like trying to get reelected thing, all the court stuff and everything, and all that. I feel like there's something on the back end that's going to happen. Same with all of them, I feel. And so, but yeah, I think you're right on that though. They're going to hand him something that it's not going to be impossible to fix, but it may not be able to be fixed in the 4 years that he's in office.
Yeah, man, it's going to be hard. Those first couple of months are going to be interesting to see what he can actually do versus what he wants to do, but there's still like a weird roadblock in the way of that.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, for those of you out there listening, you can tune in to Unscripted Company, and we will tell you everything you need to know along the way. I think this would be a good opportunity real quick just to put a pause on things and just say, hey, if you made it to this part of the episode, first of all, that's awesome. We are more than happy to have you along on this adventure. Hopefully you're enjoying it thus far. If you haven't done so yet, go ahead and give us a like. It's probably in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, depending on where you're watching or listening to this. You can also give us a subscribe or a follow. We definitely appreciate it. I'm not going to bother you with asking you to turn on notifications because I don't even do that. That's annoying. If I want to check in, I'll check in. Also, leave us a comment. Let us know. Actually, what Riley? What should they let us know? I'm trying to think through this on the fly in unscripted fashion. I have drawn a blank.
I don't know. Ask us a question. I mean, about what our current topics are. We would definitely like to hear your thoughts on some of these things, and who knows? We can start getting that interaction from our audience out there. We can start, having a comment of the week featured on our episodes. Or
That's
if you
a good idea.
Yeah, or if you have a question that you want to ask, a statement that you want to make, or even if you have a topic. If you have a topic, then who knows? Maybe that topic will be featured on an episode, and we will give that kudos to you.
So Riley, serious note here for a second. Have you confessed your sins to our autonomous Lord and Savior, AI Jesus Christ? Have you done that yet today?
Not the AI one, I haven't, but the other one I have, the real one.
Well, there's a church in Switzerland who has kind of gone viral with an AI Jesus. So I first saw a post on X about this, and I was like, whoa, hold on. This can't be like real. Like, it's one thing to have like an AI Jesus, but to have like a church that literally has an AI Jesus in the confession booth, tad odd. So I looked into it. This is a real thing. So this is the headline from the New York Post. It says, this church has an AI Jesus for confessions. Quote, it gave me so much advice. This is back on November 20th. It says, is this the mess AI? Aya? So like the Messiah, but throwing AI in there. It says, just in case artificial intelligence hasn't been taking enough jobs lately, now it's replacing the Almighty. A church in Switzerland is now using an AI hologram of Jesus to take confessions from Catholic worshipers, as seen in a wild viral video. Quote, I was surprised. It was so easy. And though it's a machine, it gave me so much advice, end quote. From one awestruck worshiper who told DW, which is like a news source, while describing their experience with the Sermonator located at St. Peter's Church in Lucerne, Switzerland. Dubbed Deus in Machina, the futuristic shrine features a confessional booth with the screen displaying the face of Jesus through a grate. Before entering, Robo-Jesus cautions, quote, do not disclose personal information under any circumstances. Use this service at your own risk. Press the button if you accept. If the worshiper opts to proceed, the digitally rendered visage interprets their words and generates a response with the animated face moving in sync with the words. When questioned about why women aren't allowed to serve as priests in the Catholic Church, the digital Son of God responded, quote, the scriptures teach that certain roles are defined within the church. Each role and task has its place in God's plan, end quote. Jesus' cybernetic second coming was made possible by computer scientists and theologians from the Lucerne University of Applied Science and Arts, who programmed the bot with New Testament and religious information found online, according to the Daily Mail. So I saw this. That was kind of interesting. I think I started the video on here. Let me see if I can play this real quick.
Do not disclose personal information under any circumstances. Use this service at your own risk. Press the button if you accept.
So yeah. Whoop. Let me make sure I actually get that paused. There is a church that has an AI Jesus taking confessions in the year 2024. What the heck does this look like 10 years from now?
I have issues.
That's fair. I think this is like, part of me is like, there's two sides here. One is, this is a huge business opportunity, but it is not morally sound at all and potentially has afterlife complications involved with it. The second side is like, what the heck are we doing as a human race?
So it was so funny that you brought this, that you had this topic. I'll try to make this story quick, but I was talking with my pastor. For those of you who don't know, my pastor I also work with in real estate on the same team and everything at the same brokerage. But we were having a conversation, and I wake up at 5 a.m. so that I can do like a 15-minute, 20 minute chapter scripture reading, and then I pray about it. I do my whole meditation thing every morning. And I've been going through Psalms, and I'll type into ChatGPT. I say, hey, this is the version of the Bible that I'm reading. Break this down and explain to me what this means. Well, I told my pastor, I was like, hey, I kind of use AI to help with some of this stuff because I don't always know what it's saying, and I don't really understand sometimes. So he was like, I use it too, but when you use it, make sure that you ask it to quote actual commentaries, like biblical commentaries, to utilize with it, because if not, then it could just be pulling it from everywhere versus like actual websites that are giving you commentaries based on what it's actually saying. And so that's my issue with this, because it's like you're confessing your sins or whatever the case may be, and you're asking for help on something that you're dealing with. And the fact remains that it's not, you don't know where it's getting this information from. So kind of what you said, like it can have serious afterlife implications and spiritual implications, because people are literally now like this defeats the whole purpose of the church. Like you don't have a robot preaching to you. You don't have an AI giving you the message or the word or whatever the case it may be, instead of a human being who actually studies it, who actually has mentors to help them understand it when they have questions. Like AI is just pulling from a generalized like whatever. So unless you have the history and the knowledge and the studies to back it up and the evidence to back it up, then it makes no sense. So that's my whole issue with that, is that it's probably not giving everything that it needs to give to the person.
What I also have to wonder with this is similar concerns to social media. How much information is this thing tracking and saving? And what I mean by that is like, it's already a tad concerning, but we've already kind of signed our life away to like Facebook and Meta and, X and Instagram and like every social media app we've ever used, because we're feeding it so much personal data, images, text, etc. But with this, you're saying the juicy stuff that you're not willing to post online. You're talking about adultery. You're talking about sins. You're talking about things that like you normally would not publicly post online. So I'm curious about, and like, where's this data being tracked? Is it being stored? Is it being analyzed? Is it being analyzed in association with your name? Like, is this being fed into like OpenAI's API to where even like OpenAI is now aware of this data as well? Like, it's just so many. We live in a world that's like, data is the modern oil, and the more oil you give to people, the more money they have. And it's just like, this doesn't end well, I don't think.
And it even said in that article not to give it your personal information, so you don't have to tell your name, I don't think. But at the same time, it's like you go, like hearing from like an actual spiritual person, like, hey, confess your sins to the Lord, ask for repentance, ask for forgiveness, or like ask for forgiveness and repent of your sins and go back, like turn away, essentially. But usually in the Catholic, and I don't know every detail about it, but it's usually like say 5 Hail Marys and,
there's like
this
thing to make it right.
Yeah. Okay. So you're hearing from, instead of like an actual like priest that has spent their entire life doing everything that they're doing, now you're supposed to make people feel better because they're hearing from an automated version of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior.
I have the best business opportunity for this. If we can install these in every, Catholic diocese around the country, You don't need to do the Hail Marys anymore. You don't need to do such and such. You just pay a simple microtransaction.
Oh my god!
Don't worry, we accept Venmo, Apple Pay, Google Pay. We accept all the, Visa, MasterCard, all that. You just tap your phone, give us a little $3.99. It'll be fine. But think about how many people would use this on a regular basis.
Or
and
a
also,
monthly subscription.
Yeah, like if you want to get more intellectual responses to your confession, maybe you get Confessional Plus. It's a plus subscription.
Jesus AI Plus.
Maybe. I don't know. There's a business opportunity here.
Yeah, I have a feeling like this is like kind of scary because AI being used for one thing, like, as a tool to help you in whatever you're doing, like whatever you're doing in your life is one thing, but using it to make people feel better about their sins, and instead of them talking to an actual person who could give them an actual humanistic response and like emotional responses to help them through what they're going through, I don't like it. I don't like it. Like this is kind of going a little too far, and I hope and pray that this is not where the future of faith is going.
Give it 5 more years. We'll see where we're at.
That won't be me. I'll still be hosting my Wednesday night Bible studies in my apartment, and or my house, and we'll be talking it up. So I ain't doing all that.
Was there any other topics you want to go over? I know we're a little bit over an hour so far, but I know I took up the majority of the time with my champagne story.
No,
but
dude, you're good. Like I was waiting to hear about it when you told me that you had some stuff to tell me. I was like, dude, I'm excited. No, the only thing, I mean, I had technically 2 things, but one was kind of like a one-off. But this one was kind of interesting. Don't really know how like serious it is, but Andrew Tate's educational platform was hacked. So
I didn't even know he had like an educational platform. Or
so he does this. If I think it's the right one, hold on, let me find it. Yeah,
I guess what's the concern? Like the user information got hacked?
I think so. So it says hacktivists have breached an online educational platform founded by the misogynistic right-wing influencer Andrew Tate. So if I think it's the one that I'm thinking,
email addresses of hundreds of thousands of users, as well as the contents of the platform's private chat servers. Ooh, private chat servers. Talking about confessional.
But it's called The Real World. So essentially, he has like this educational program. It costs like a few $100s.
Is it targeted like adults or?
It's for like it's to help people grow it's to help people start a business, like like you choose like a form of business that you want, like e-commerce, real estate.
I see that it was formerly called Hustlers University.
Yeah, focused on personal growth. According to his website, members receive expert training, mentorship, and access to a wide range of educational courses around $50 a month. So it's like a subscription thing. So essentially, it's supposed to help people, gain like a huge net worth in a short time. Like there's been people who said like they went from making like a $2,000 a month to now they're making like $15,000 a month just by learning what they use off this. I don't know how true it is. I've looked into it because I'm like, I'm curious, like how does this work? And I mean, you don't really get too far unless you actually pay for it. But so it says Thursday. Let's see here. According to Daily Dot, hacktivists announced their breach on the platform on Thursday by disrupting the course's main chat room with a barrage of uploaded emojis while Tate was live streaming an episode of his show Emergency Meeting on Rumble. The emojis included a transgender pride flag, the feminist fist, an AI-generated image of Tate wrapped in a rainbow flag. Data from the breach verified by Wired includes more than 700,000 usernames and reportedly includes messages from 221 public and 395 private chat servers. Chat logs ranging from motivational quotes to personal progress updates to grievances about the LGBTQ agenda as they're continuing to analyze everything. It's the worst telecom hack. This is a whole different one. But yeah, so that's that. I just thought that was interesting because, having his whole
his business basically.
Yeah, like I mean, don't get me wrong, he's got like other forms of income, but it's just like he wanted to start this subscription-based thing to help young men because I don't know a lot about Andrew Tate and his brother and stuff like that, but as far as like
very controversial figure,
they are, and they talk about things like how don't be a a player to women and that are going to take advantage of you, who do certain controversial things themselves, but like, become a king, so to speak. So like grow yourself, personal growth. To be fair, you don't have to take subscription classes like this to grow yourself. I have a whole list of books over here that I'm still going through and reading. So it's like, don't just read a book, but study the book. Like study the book, use AI, freaking watch people on YouTube that have like that have a huge following, that have built successful businesses, sold successful businesses, and that have grown that following, and learn from them. Even if you can't talk to them in real life, learn from what they did or they didn't do to help you build yourself up. And it's just all about discipline, and something I'm still working on. So you don't have to pay $50 a month for this. Just
No,
read
I wouldn't.
books.
This is me getting very opinionated here. He's a fun Twitter follow. I would not give him a dime of my money.
Nope.
That he has too sketchy of a past for me to willingly give that guy money.
Yeah. So it's just kind of one of those things, like if you want to be successful, be willing to learn, be willing to grow, study books. Like, dude, like you can go to so many used bookstores and get books that are brand new for like $30 online and go get them for like $10. Like, so you can buy like a whole plethora of just used books for there's infinite knowledge, and books they're always going to be around. So it's like, and then just use AI. Like if you don't have the money for it, find a book you want and be like, hey, summarize this book for me, chapter by chapter, line by line, like summarize it for me. Boom. There you go. There's the entire book summarized. You read it, learn from it. There you go.
And for only 2 easy payments of $29.99, you also can enroll in Riley's new university, Unscripted University.
Dude,
we'll put a PayPal link in the description down below. We just got to come up with a curriculum.
Yet. Although I have goals, I actually do want to write a book eventually. Like that is something that's actually a goal of mine, a very, very much so long-term goal. I do want to write a book, kind of like you can mix a business and self-help kind of thing, but just like a growth book. Like that's something that I have a vision for that I want to do in the future. So
no, that makes sense. That's a good goal to strive forward. Yeah, that's cool. Well, I think episode 43. I had to double check, man. Once we get into these higher numbers, I'm like, man,
I'm telling you, man.
I'm like, we're on 40 something now, and it's crazy to think we're gonna be at 50 here in no time. Double checking on that. We're gonna hit episode 50 in middle of January, so almost exactly in the middle of January. So that'll be exciting. Got that on the horizon. But for episode 43, I think we're in the books. We talked about a star exploding, getting a photograph of that. Talked about champagnes. If you ever find yourself out in Las Vegas, go have a good time for $6. Talked about
be
potentially,
careful,
be careful,
bartender.
Yeah, talked about potentially having World War III on the horizon, and Andrew Tate of all people. Didn't realize he was going to make an appearance on this podcast. That's always interesting. Was there anything else? I think that was kind of it for that one.
I mean, I know you still had a couple things. I mean, I know one of the things you had was similar to what I talked about, but I saw you had something about Linda McMahon. I saw that.
Oh,
that was interesting.
Yeah, I can hit that one in like 10 seconds real quick. It's just interesting. Donald Trump's named Linda McMahon, wife of Vincent K. McMahon of the World Wrestling Entertainment, to be the pick for Secretary of Education for the Department of Education. So that'll be very interesting just for any of you out there who grew up watching WWE, just the perspective and your perception of Linda McMahon. Now, she did play a role in Trump's cabinet, I believe, as the small business secretary or secretary of small business back in the 2016 administration. I know she's leading, I think, his transition team this go around as well.
Yeah.
I think she had a run for Senate in the state of Connecticut, if I remember, a couple maybe a decade back or so. So it's not her first foray into politics. Absolutely her first foray into the Department of Education. But I had a video that I had linked to in the show notes. I just thought that was funny. So this is a video of the mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, pile driving the soon-to-be Secretary of Education. But for those who don't know, the wrestler known as Kane, his actual name is Glenn Jacobs. He is, ever since I think 2018, maybe before that. He's been the
I
mayor
think it was
of.
before that.
Might have been. He's won re-election a couple times, but he's the mayor of Knox County, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
So, just funny.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, episode 43 is in the books. As always, for those of you out there watching, first of all, thank you. Appreciate you watching. Don't forget, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscribe, leave a comment down below. Let us know, do you think we're headed into World War III? What would you do if you're about to be president come January? Would you change some of the decisions being made? Let us know. As always, Riley, I'm going to hand it off to you for the last words of wisdom. You've had a lot of wisdom this episode, but you got to drop some new knowledge on us.
So, I mean, yeah, we are actually at almost episode 50. We definitely have a lot of changes that we're working on the back end. It's when it's two people working on it, it doesn't go as fast as some people when they have a whole team working behind the sscenes, but we're working as fast as we can. You'll probably start seeing some changes being implemented over the next few weeks going into episode 50. Just as my co-host said, we don't anticipate World War III, but things are escalating. We encourage you just to kind of keep an eye out for it. How do you feel about AI Jesus? How do you feel about Jesus in general? I mean, I definitely, as being a follower, I don't condone AI Jesus. I don't condone just straight up like if it becomes like a hey, give your life to AI Jesus, then we have a serious problem on our hands at that point. And you really need to seek the real Jesus. Would you watch MSNBC again if Elon Musk was to buy it? Like, because I'll be honest, I'd probably check it out just to see what it would be like, how it would be shaken up. But again, we appreciate all your support and everything that you guys do for all the viewers. And again, any comments, questions, whatever, we'd love to feature things on future episodes. So please help us get to that point. Interact with us. We'd love to hear from you guys. And even if you want to support our channel in more than just that way, we do have our merch if that's something that you feel compelled to do. If not, we still appreciate you anyway. So have a good one, guys.